Hello, my friends. So today was my last day of regular classes at university, and I cannot tell you how happy I am to be done and out of that dreadful place. And as I reflected on my university experience, one thing stuck out in particular, and that is this trend that I've noticed of group work in the classroom becoming more and more prevalent. And I mean, obviously, group work in the real world, in real life situations, outside of major institutions like the university, group work is necessary to some extent. But in the context of university, group work always felt frustrating. It felt just annoying. Nobody liked group work. It didn't seem to have any direct benefit or advantage to learning the subjects that we were involved in the class. And as I thought back on my university experience and just how negative group work was in general, it made me think, like, what is the actual point of group work? Why is group work becoming more and more and more common in university classrooms? So, just to spoil the argument, I'm going to explain to you why I think this, but just to give you a heads up in advance, I think that group work in the context of universities, its primary function is mind control and the creation of consensus, especially in values, social values at the university. And to prove that to you, I've got here a page from Carnegie Mellon University. Carnegie Mellon is considered like a top tier school in the United States, and they have a page on the benefits of group work. And quite a few of these supposed benefits follow a pattern, and I'll read them to you. You could tell me what that pattern is. 1, challenge assumptions. 2, share diverse perspectives. 3, hold one another and be held accountable. 4, establish a shared identity with other group members. And 5, find effective peers to emulate. All of those supposed benefits are purely social. They have nothing to do with academic or intellectual development. It's purely social. Especially stuff like sharing diverse perspectives or establishing a shared identity with other group members. I don't know about you if you go to college, but I did not go to university to hear diverse perspectives or to be exposed to diversity or to establish a shared identity with my fellow students. I went to university, first of all, just to get the piece of paper, but from a naive perspective, I went to university to learn about my subject of interest, which is philosophy. And none of these supposed benefits of group work have any direct relation to academic or intellectual development. It's all social. As I said, the most explicit one is to establish a shared identity with other group members. So I think that the reason that group work is so heavily promoted in the university system these days is because it is basically a micromanagement method to create consensus among their students about the values and ethical stances that the university has taken. And I think the way that works is when you have a bunch of kids who are 18, 19 years old going into a university, most of them, the average student, is a little insecure in themselves. They still haven't grown into an adult that has a strong sense, a rooted sense of their values, of what they think is right in the world, what's wrong in the world. They're kind of insecure. They're teenagers, 18, 19 years old. They're insecure teenagers. And so the most confident and secure students are typically, 9 times out of 10, going to be the students that feel like they're on the same page as the authorities in their social sphere. And when you're at university, your whole social world is the university. So it's those students that feel like they're on the same page, like they correspond to the authoritative values that are espoused by the university, that are carried out and put into practice in the classroom by their professors, the leftist, progressive, globalist, diversity-loving, white-hating, tradition-hating institutions, and these values that they have. The students that already agree with and understand that sort of line of thinking and are on the same page are going to be the most confident, because they feel like they've got the weight of the fucking college behind them. They have the weight of the professor behind them. They know that the professor is going to agree. They know that in general this is the consensus. And so those students are going to be the most confident. And when you put students into groups, that mindset is, I think, each student is assuming that the other is going to have that same mindset, because that's just the prevailing opinion. That's the perceived consensus at the university. And the students that actually agree with that are going to be the ones that feel confident enough to speak up and lead the discussion. And the ones that might have some misgivings about it or some disagreements or whatever, they're going to feel totally isolated. They're not going to lead the discussion. They're going to be afraid that others in the group will lash out at them if they lead the discussion. They're going to feel like aliens there. And so students that are on the fence about it are going to quickly, very quickly, internalize those opinions, I think. Because when you're working with others, and this is, I pulled up a page on Wikipedia about conformity, and there's Wikipedia lists 2 types of influence: informational influence and normative influence. And I think both of these types of influences are at play in the group work or group projects. And informational influence is when one turns to the members of one's group to obtain and accept accurate information about reality. And a person is most likely to use informational social influence in certain situations, when a situation is ambiguous, when people are uncertain about what to do, when they perceive others as being an expert, when they perceive others as representing the prevailing opinion, the consensus opinion. And it says, informational social influence often results in internalization or private acceptance, where a person genuinely believes that the information is right. And so you could see when you're in a project that incorporates leftist globalist values, as most projects in anything other than like a STEM field, most projects do this. If you're in anything related to humanities, liberal arts, most projects are going to have some component that touches upon, or even not even a component, but the project might be entirely focused and centered on issues like diversity, issues like racism, sexism, homophobia, tolerance, right-wing extremism. That's come up many times in the classes that I've taken. Challenging people's assumptions, traditional societal values and norms are challenged. All of these things are challenged, and all of these things like diversity, tolerance, acceptance, global citizenship, these sorts of ideas are promoted heavily in just about any, if you've got a dartboard of humanities projects, random humanities projects, you throw the dart 9 out of 10 times, it's going to have, I'd say probably even 10 out of 10 times, the way the universities are today, they're going to have some component which brings this up. And so the students that are completely against it and know they're against it, because of this influence around them and because the obvious sense of a prevailing consensus, those students are going to be quiet. And the students that are on the fence, who don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other, who are insecure in themselves, they're going to immediately attach themselves to the prevailing opinion. And the students that already agree with the prevailing opinion are going to be the most confident, the most secure in themselves, the most willing to speak up and lead the group, lead the discussion. So if I were an institution administrator, a college or university administrator, and I wanted to make sure that each individual student was subjected to a situation which would cause them to internalize the university's values and ethics, then I would assign group work that forced them to put in their own words the university's values and ethical stances. Because then not only are they putting it in their own words, thinking it through themselves, coming up with their own ideas about it, but they're also expressing that in front of their peers, which is like a spell that you're putting on people. Like, I think once somebody thinks through a problem on their own, comes to their own understanding in their own words, and then expresses that in front of others and stands by it, they are very likely to internalize it. So yeah, and you know, the fact is that it's pretty obvious from universities' mission statements that academic achievement and intellectual development are not really the only objectives that the university has. I got the page here of UIC's mission statement, University of Illinois, Chicago. Part of that mission statement includes, quote, "to create knowledge that transforms our views of the world and, through sharing and application, transforms the world." It's a revolutionary mindset, essentially. And farther down the list, to foster scholarship and practices that reflect and respond to the increasing diversity of the United States in a rapidly globalizing world. These are the values that the university is espousing. You have to think they're going to be promoting these values somehow. They're going to be trying to shape the opinions, mold the minds of their students to accept these values somehow. And when it's too explicit, when it's just rammed down the kids' throats, they don't accept it very well. But I think somebody realized along the way, if you get them involved in solving problems that have to do with these values, which take these values as like for granted in the background, and you just move forward and you have them work on problems which take these values for granted, and you have them working with other people that perceive this as the consensus opinion, and you have other people in the class that already agree with it, and so they're leading the discussion because they feel like they're at home at the university. And this is how I would get every last student. It's like a micromanagement technique to get these ideas into every student's head. And, you know, just for shits and giggles, I also pulled up the Harvard mission statement, which is even more explicit. The reason I chose Harvard is it's, you know, if you think of top tier school, Ivy League, Harvard is usually the first school that comes to mind. And this is what their mission statement is. The mission of Harvard College is to educate the citizens and citizen leaders for our society. We do this through our commitment to the transformative power of a liberal arts and sciences education. So the transformation is once again emphasized. Beginning in the classroom with exposure to new ideas, new ways of understanding, and new ways of knowing, students embark on a journey of intellectual transformation. Through a diverse living environment where students live with people who are studying different topics, who come from different walks of life and have evolving identities, intellectual transformation is deepened and conditions for social transformation are created. So, elite trend-setting universities. One second, please. Anyway, elite trend-setting universities are explicitly saying in their mission statement that their whole objective is about transforming the world by transforming their students and ultimately enacting social transformation through that, and that they value diverse living environments. It's quite euphemistic, but it's pretty obvious what they're talking about, especially just in the context of everything else happening in the world. I mean, it's obvious what these words mean. So, anyway, a bit of a ramble, but yeah, I just really wanted to talk about how much I fucking hate group work, how horrible of an experience it was, and how the naive student coming into a university these days who is forced into group work is really being forced into a mind control program, basically. I mean, it's a mind control technique. It's explicit in the Carnegie Mellon webpage, saying that they want to create shared identities, to have diverse perspectives be valued, this and that. I mean, it's all pretty obvious what it's meant to do, and I've explained why I think that. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.